So I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. We're very excited about the group of people we have to speak with you tonight who have a very timely topic that they're going to share. And it's really, really important for anybody in marketing and communication to understand the sort of behind-the-scenes look that took place. This just didn't happen magically that we became a university. This team of 3 people worked very, very, very hard for months and did a phenomenal job in rolling out the new Lasell University. They did all of the work to prepare the university for this. So I hope you'll give them your full attention, and you'll have some interesting questions when they finish. And this will give you a perspective of what happened behind the scenes right here at our own institution. Our first speaker tonight is going to be Lynette, who's right here. He's the Chief Marketing Officer for Lasell. He's been here about 10 years. And I would like to also introduce you to our next speaker, who's Ian Metropole. And Ian is now the Director of Communications, and he's the person who deals with media relations and all the media. So when you read about Lasell in the media, he's been responsible for rolling that out. He's been doing a great job. And then the third person, who's also done a fabulous job, that we're happy to welcome a few years ago, is Rebecca Oliver. And Rebecca Oliver is the Chief Digital Officer, and she works on all of the digital messages that we have that go out to your population and to the greater public. And she's also done a great job too. So thank you for coming and welcome. We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you. So the way that we're going to break down tonight's talk is in 3 sections. Hopefully nothing else breaks. It's in 3 sections. What I'm going to talk about is the research phase, the stuff that we did before we launched everything. Then Ian's going to talk about the communication side, in terms of PR, how we got in the paper, measurement, analytics, and Rebecca's going to talk about the marketing side, kind of putting everything together in the package that we've shown. So to get things started, there was about 10 years ago. I've been here for about 12. And a shout out to the grad program. I'm a graduate in the grad program. My degree, and actually I took Professor Wall as well, who I always forget, and Professor Barrett. I took her class as well. I graduated in 2009 from that. So a little bit about the timeline. So about 10 years ago, my boss came to me and said, we need to buy LasellUniversity.org. We need to buy this domain. And a conversation ensued, and I said, why would we do something like that? You know, back then you needed, the state regs were a little different. You needed a couple of doctoral programs. You needed a certain percentage of international students. In your college, you needed a certain number of graduate students. You needed a certain number of doctoral candidates. None of those things we actually met. But once the state changed their regulations, we actually met university status 10 years ago. So it's something that we've been thinking about and doing for a bit. So you kind of see here just a very much of an overview of the timeline that we've had. And President Alexander was adamant that this is going to be a Board of Trustees decision. He was adamant about the Board of Trustees decision, but influenced by the community. So when the Board of Trustees said yes, we approve this, then we were actually able to go to the state. There were 2 main research components to this. The first one was set up by President Alexander. He basically got a group of 18 people and said, you guys are going to spend a bunch of time together. You're going to research university status options. So there was a finance group, there was a research group, there was a marketing group. I was part of the finance and marketing one. There was a law firm, there was a law group, because all of these things need to be taken into consideration before we could even recommend to the Board of Trustees whether or not we should actually pursue this. So this university status study group was put together, and the short answer to this is overwhelming response came back that said yes, this is something that we should pursue. That was from students, that was from faculty, that was from staff, that was from alumni, it was from parents, it was from neighbors. We sent out tons of surveys, and we asked a bunch of people. We did focus groups, and overwhelmingly came back that yes, this is something that we should actually pursue. So what we did was we took that, and we missed a slide in here. So what we did was we took that and we went to board of trustees and we said, okay, this is what the institution has said. What we then decided to do was we partnered with an agency called Privacy. And what they did was they came and they did more focus groups, they did more research. So what we had to do is, in order to get the creative and the messaging and all of those things that you think of as an end result, there was a tremendous amount of work that went into getting to that point. So when Privacy came on board, they did focus groups, they talked to about 120 people on campus in different groups. They constructed these key themes, kind of like a messaging map as well. And what we did from there was we said, okay, let's move forward. And there were some different points of view. This is a phase that was really interesting. What we did here was we needed to quantify Lasell College. We need to quantify the brand awareness of Lasell College. How do you actually do that? You know, it's when you work in marketing and communications, you have to prove everything, right? You have to prove the spend that you have on certain things, how much things cost, investments. So what we did here was when we were doing these institutional campaigns like billboards, you're on TV, you're running commercials, that stuff's really expensive, okay? So what we need to do is we need to say, okay, is this actually shifting? Is this moving the needle? What we did was we partnered with a man who actually does this for a living. He's done a couple for institutions. He does a lot around grocery stores. So what he did was we created these surveys and went out to the marketplace online, said, hey, these are the criteria. These are the people that we want. Okay, so this was our base. This was our foundational components to the surveys. And what this initial one did was, what this is it gives us a place to go. Okay, so we had to get started. So now we have a benchmark of where we are in the marketplace. Some of the things that came back, the report that he gave us, it's huge. It's 100 pages, it slices and dices data 10,000 different ways. I just took out a couple of charts to show you guys. So what this was, these were the institutions that we wanted to compare ourselves to. To get these institutions, what we did was we worked with our director of institutional research. And we said, cross applications, how many students apply here and apply somewhere else? And then what we can then do is we can then say, okay, well, these are the students' perceptions of who applies here and who applies to these other institutions. Give me the list of the other institutions. And then what we decided to do was to sort of say, okay, what's your impression of Lasell, right? So you're going down here, not a lot of this was a surprise, okay? We kind of knew where the results were going. The really interesting part here is where we're talking about neutral. The opportunities for very favorable, the opportunities for very unfavorable, you don't really have that many. But when it comes to influencing the neutral population, which is a quarter, that's a huge population. So that's a needle that we can move. So when you're talking neutral, these are people that have not been influenced yet. So if you combine neutral and slightly favorable, you're at 35%. That's almost a third. So if you think about the messaging, and you think about, okay, this is the population that you want to go after, this is where we can target. This was another one that I found to be depressing and interesting at the same time. So again, the other institutions, this is a matrix chart, right? So you have the other institutions, and then you have all these quality aspects over here. Upper right, Lasell College, financial stability. I got this back, and we were looking at it, and we were almost in disbelief. This went out the same time as the failed acquisition of Mount Ida. So what people did was they put us into that category of not being financially stable. That's the furthest thing from the truth. So what we now have opportunities to do is we can influence that number. And that's how you use this kind of data, right? So we get all this survey back, and this is true market research. Well then, okay, how do we influence that? We know we can influence that. So we do it with earned, we do it with paid. And we say earned media and paid media, and we say, okay, we know that financial stability is one of our strengths. It's truly one of Lasell University's strengths. So let's influence it in the collateral that we have. And that's what we've been doing. And this survey, this was out a little bit after the Mount Ida stuff. And if you look at all the other things, it's fairly benign. You know, I mean, we're not really low on some things, we're not really high on on other things. But where we are is, again, it gives us room to grow. And then this is, I kind of went through this. This is the agency that we partnered with, Privacy. These are some of the themes that they found. Nothing really surprising, but what we do with this information, paired with the information that we got about the market research and the brand, we put them together. And now what we start to do is we strategically craft messaging around that, and it's very authentic. This is kind of the fun stuff, working with Privacy, the agency. I kind of threw a couple of these in because I thought you guys would find them interesting. So when we were partnering with them, we said, okay, we have all this research, we have messaging. What is Lasell University actually going to look like? How is it going to be perceived? So what they did was they came back, this was the very first round. They came back with 5 different logos. And the way that these are kind of broken down is this one looks the closest to the way that Lasell College used to look. This is the one that's furthest away from where Lasell College used to look. And when you get into this kind of engagement, at the first round, you never say, yeah, that's the one I want. You say, well, I want a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and you come back with something and say, well, now we need to work on this. So what we did, we said, we like these two. Come back. We like the professionalism in this. We also like the mark that this one had. They came back with this. Because we said, hey, we wanted bold. Our messaging, everything that we're doing is we were so proud to be Lasell University. We wanted bold and we wanted to jump up and down. They came back a little too bold. Right? And of course, this is what we ended up. And what we can start to do is reinforce the guidance, reinforce the marks, Lasell University in a very consistent way. Now I'm going to give it over to Ian.
I'm going to step in
Or Rebecca.
for
two slides. We're gonna
go back and
forth.
Our nicknames are earned and paid. So this is talking about the storytelling, because all of that work then had to be executed, and it wasn't just going to be a press release. This was a huge thing. It's a great opportunity that we have. It's not many times that a college becomes a university, although it does appear to be happening quite frequently around here. So what we had to do was figure out how can we make the strongest, fastest, greatest impression right away. And the way to do that was storytelling through video. So we had to figure out, should we do it on YouTube? Should we do it on Vimeo? All of that comes into the digital marketing strategy of it. What we did was, in order to save costs, in order to understand the brand, we took the manifesto. So, well, Chris was talking about all that research that went into who we are and how we're going to talk about ourselves. There's a lot of dense language in there. But all of that has to be explained and justified in some way. So there's a manifesto that was created, and we made that manifesto the speech that President Alexander would give. So he did that, and overcut were images of things that we want people to now associate with Lasell University. So we chose images such as this building being constructed, students looking directly into the camera, because this is all about students. We showed a number of different images. And then, so this was our launch. And we left that up there for a couple of days. We also have a second video that we're going to roll out in January. It's the same video, but it's evergreen. Because this is not a quick story. It's a story that has to, been around since 1851. We have to continue to talk about how now we're university. We're no longer college. And who we are now also shows physically of a time-lapse video taking down college, putting up university, but it's still the same sign. So it's this weird marriage that we have to do of we're changing, but we're still the same. And that's why we chose to do this with a video as opposed to just a press release. We wanted to hit both avenues.
So hand it back over to Ern right now.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me. I remember a lot of you guys. I met you around campus and whatnot. So what I've learned in my career has spanned kind of the media part of it. I worked in TV and radio for 10 years, and then I worked in PR for the last probably 9, 2 at an agency and 1 at a construction company, and then I've been here since August. So what I've learned in my career is that media relations is really the lifeblood of PR. It's hard. Like I'm sure a lot of you will find out, you get rejected probably 80% of the time. So it's a lower batting average than most people in Major League Baseball. But when it works, it can be the most effective means of promotion for a client, because what are you doing? You're having someone else tell your story for you. And so, we call it earned media, right? So earned media is what we talk about from a PR standpoint. So you're talking to reporters, you're talking to television producers, and you're saying, hey, I have this story. Would you be interested in writing it? Third-party affirmation. Owned is our own properties. So we own our website, we own Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Those are our own properties. The university owns these. So you are able to tell your story like that. In our office, we always talk about these 3, and if you're not doing them in concert, you're not effective. Back in the day, our group, the communications team sat over in Potter, and the marketing team was over in Hamel, and they reported to different people. Before I came, Chris took over as chief marketing officer and brought all of those together. Because what I've learned, and I worked at an advertising agency called Allen & Garrettson for a while, and that was an advertising agency that realized that they needed PR within their advertising agency, because if they didn't have it, then someone would go out and get a place that did that. So we had a social team at Allen & Garrettson, we had an advertising team, and we had a PR team. And if you're not doing all 3 of those things together, you're not as effective. With regard to media relations, I truly believe it's all about relationships. Reporters are really good at their jobs, but it's hard. They have hard jobs. They're doing a lot of different things now. Different staff is being cut. They're doing 10 different things that they weren't doing 20 years ago. And they have a lot of PR people calling them too. So building trust with the reporter is so important. And when you make sure you call them, that it's something that they're going to want to use, right? So like Tom Cruise said to Cuba Gooding Jr. and Jerry Maguire, help me, help you. Because that really is the way that PR people and reporters have to work. Because if you go to them with 10 things that they're not going to want, when you finally have that one thing, they're going to say, you know what, I'm not even opening your email, or I'm not even picking up the phone. So when we decided to move forward with applying for university status here at Lasell, we put together a plan that had media relations actually kicking off the announcement. So what we decided to do is engage a reporter from the Boston Globe about an exclusive. Give her access to President Alexander and Lasell before we were actually given approval from the state. So when it became official, the Globe could post their story right away. So why did we choose the Globe? Because in New England, the Globe is the top dog. They still are. Not as many people read the actual physical paper, but the online portion of it and the physical paper, they serve as kind of the news desk for the rest of the media within New England. So if it's in the Globe, it's probably going to be in a lot of other places. But if you gave it to someone else first, the Globe may not write it. So we took that chance. We reached out to a reporter who we've known for a while. Her name is Deirdre Fernandez. She's an education reporter. She's fair. She's trustworthy. And myself and Sandy Goldfarb, who works for our PR agency that partners with us, have a really good relationship with her. So we told her we had a story that we wanted to pitch her under embargo. So that means she would have the story before anyone else, but that she couldn't run it until a specific date and time. So that date and time, we told her, was when the state officially granted us university status. We don't tell her what the story is before she agrees to the embargo. A lot of PR people make that mistake. They send them an email and say, hey, the story's under embargo. Well, no, that's not how it works. The reporter has to agree to the embargo, then you give them the story, and then they decide if they want to write it. So that's an important thing that I learned because I worked in media for a while, but a lot of PR people don't realize that. They just say, oh, I'm sending you an email that says, story under embargo. Well, technically a reporter can run it because they've never agreed to an embargo. So that's a really important distinction that you need to engage your reporter. How I like to do it is email them and say, hey, I've got a story I'd like to pitch you under embargo. Do you have 5 minutes to chat? And then when you get on the phone, they agree to the embargo, you give them the story. She agreed to it. So President Alexander and I hosted Deirdre to Dunn House the Friday before our hearing in front of the state, which was Monday the 13th. So we had her at our house, we had her at Michael's house. No, we don't live together. Sometimes though. She met with Michael and myself at Michael's house for 90 minutes, and she had her story written by the end of the weekend. Before that meeting though, we had been working very hard on our end. Like Rebecca said, we had taped this incredible video that I'm sure all of you saw. It was edited. It took about, how long did it take to put that together? About a month. I mean, that was a lot of work, and Rebecca did an unbelievable job and her team putting that together. We had emails written to 15 different audiences, both internally and externally. So every 20, 30,000 people were going to get these emails the minute we became a university status, whether it was students, faculty, staff, employees, neighbors, political people in Newton and all the Massachusetts, the Governor Baker, Senators Warren and Markey, Congressman Kennedy, all these people, they needed to know when we became a university, and we had all of these emails written specifically for those audiences with the video. We received word Tuesday morning at 7:30, the day after the 13th, we called the Globe and said you can go live. And the Deirdre Fernandez, we were all in the office at like 6:30. We were just like ready to go. Like we called Deirdre at 7:30. She said, "Oh, it won't be posted till 10 a.m." So it actually gave us a little bit more breathing room. So at 10:15, the story went live, and we went to work. The website was updated instantly with the new logo and all of the appropriate language. The emails were sent out within 2 minutes to the Lasell community from President Alexander, with the video being the centerpiece. Every email said, welcome to Lasell University, and then the email had the video. We changed over our social media handles that we had actually secured months before. So about 6 months before this happened, we secured all the social media handles that we use today for Lasell University. And then we sent an official press release out to the remaining members of the media who we hadn't engaged with an embargo for. We weren't just going to have the Globe and no one else. You know, we sent it out to 20, 30, 40 different outlets across the country and here in New England. All of this was done by 11:30, an hour and 15 minutes, and the strategy really paid off. In the 48 hours after the Globe story hit, we had a lot of success. The Boston Globe obviously did a story online and in print. The Boston Business Journal did a story. The Newton Patch wrote a story. And Bloomberg Radio, who we pitched, actually had President Alexander on 2 days later for a 20-minute radio interview all about the success of Lasell University and why we made the change and why we were doing so well. It was a really big success. We knew people would consume our announcement in different places, but it was important to us that an email was in their inbox waiting for them if by chance they saw this announcement in the Globe or on social media, which is where the majority of people saw it. I just show of hands, how many of you found out about this by email? And then maybe how many by social media? And anyone in the Globe? All right, so I mean it's a good mix, but it was important to President Alexander and us that there was an email in their inbox waiting for them should they see that somewhere else. But President Alexander also was adamant over the last 9 months of keeping people in the loop that this was happening. He didn't want it to be a surprise, and it's kind of hard for us. And you know, we wanted it. We didn't want it to be a surprise, but we also didn't want the media to know about it, because then they would write and they would call, and we weren't ready and prepared. So it was a tough dynamic. But President Alexander was firm that this was an important thing to keep the community in the loop, because we didn't want it to be a surprise when it happened. Now, here's the interesting thing. Our social media stats, the 24 hours after, within 24 hours of the announcement, our social media stats were unbelievable. Twitter had 5,800 views of the video, 67 retweets and 154 likes. just so you guys know, our average Twitter post probably gets about 12 to 15 likes and maybe 4 or 5 retweets. But, you know, we tweet every day, so that's the average. The big ones, you know, get more, but this is just incredible. Facebook had 8,700 views of the video. We do get more engagement on Facebook than any other social channel, but these numbers were unlike anything we've seen. Instagram, 1,700 views. LinkedIn, 2,500 views, 115 likes, and 86 shares. This is all within the first 24 hours. But the one that really struck me was YouTube. 1,700 views without any promotion. So what we did was we put our video on our YouTube channel. And basically people saw the news, whether it was on social, and emails, or in the Globe, and they went to YouTube to search it. So 1,700 views in 24 hours, we knew that our job was working, getting the word out. This was really a once-in-a-lifetime project for someone like me. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work, and a lot of planning, and it was. I think everyone on our team was really happy with how it went. Now I'm going to hand the clicker back over to Rebecca.
Yes. So now the message is out there. Now what? Again, this isn't just we become a university and then same old, same old. It's different. We now have a new brand. We are a university. We're supposed to be massive while still staying true to who we are. It's small classroom sizes. We're still in pursuit of great, but now we're actually forever forward. So we need to take all these different elements that all the research that Chris and the university at large did and make that a really strong, consistent message. And that means also tweaking it slightly for different audiences. And I'm not just talking the 12 to 17, the 25 to 35. I'm talking about undergrad and also grad. We have kind of two visions here. So we need to make sure that that message is consistent. So there's the digital side of that, making sure all of our ads are there, but then also across the university. This is a PowerPoint. We had to have a PowerPoint template ready to go. We had to have email banners ready to go. We had to have email signatures, new swag so that people could start walking around with our new shield. And all the different lockups across the university. And even the smallest thing, such as a lockup, there's a different way that we present a department as opposed to a program or an office. And all of these things have to be consistent right after that. You don't get this opportunity very often to rebrand yourself. So these are our old ads. Lasell College, you'll see. This, we worked with a partner maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Ology, and they decided that we were in pursuit of great. And that's what we looked like. Now we're forever forward, and we're trying to show momentum, and we're trying to focus on the student as well as Lasell University. So secondarily, we're focusing on undergrad, graduate, online for the time being. We'll be adapting that as the farther away from the announcement we get. But the idea of having everything blurred shows that we're forever forward. You see yourself in motion. I'll show you some print collateral there as well. Again, this is for the graduate professional studies. We have our value points, but now we've adapted it to indicate that it's the small little things with marketing, right? You're trying to create an emotion. So this slash, this slightly filtered background, you're always moving. There's always something else going on. This isn't just a plain blue background. So these are all of our new digital marketing assets. And all of those digital marketing and print marketing assets come from the ideas, come from the words. So we have to take those words and then start to get creative with them. And how can we create an emotion of forward thinking, of large university, of the gravitas, of the historical announcement in a creative form that's a digital ad. It's a little tricky, but I think we've come pretty close. And that's working off of all of the research that went into what are our values, who do we want to be, who do people think we are, and what can we move. That's fine.
You know what? Do you want to show them?
You can do it right here.
So again, even small things. We constantly run Facebook ads. We no longer, you can hit play. We no longer run static Facebook ads. We only run video Facebook ads because it shows motion. It's a small little thing. But one, you can get more text on your Facebook ad if it's animated. Pro tip. But we're again showing motion and we're having that filter. There's something else always going on. this isn't a stationary situation. Any questions?
So this is one of my favorite pictures. This is going to be in the next issue of Leaves. This is every single audience that the institution has. So we have Board of Trustees, we have President Alexander, we have neighbors, we have Lasell Village residents, we have children at our Barn Hallway Child Study Center, we have graduate students, we have undergraduate students. That's why I wanted to end on this. We left a bunch of time for questions, hoping that you guys have a bunch of questions. Yes?
With that, the logo that was red, did you guys not pick that because of the red? Or like, I know you said that it was too bold, but was color an issue?
So, yes, so,
Yeah, I'll go back. Oh, the clicker, I'll go back, yeah.
so the, working with the agency, you push the agency, they push you. They were pushing us into a place that we weren't comfortable with. But we said to them, like this, but it doesn't resonate with Lasell. There's, why this color? Right? Why this color? Why not one of our blues that we have? And then when we were going back and forth, is when we said to them, you know what, this doesn't make any sense. Because what we wanted was, we gave them feedback that said, you know what? I can't really see the L in here. I can't really see the U. This needs to be bolder. This needs to be so I don't have to think about what it is. They came back with this. And I think you immediately see the L. You might kind of see the U, but it doesn't represent who we are. This is the blue that we have. When I was around graduation, around May, I was talking to a group of students, and I'm showing them this and asking for feedback, and doing that kind of focus group type of research. And a student, very perceptive, she said to me, she said, you know, she said, this reminds me, this Lasell, because there are two different font types, right? We have a serif font and a sans serif font. She said, you know, this Lasell, this reminds me of us. This reminds me of tradition. This reminds me of university, of something collegiate. University font down here looks fresh, looks bold. It looks like this is where we're going. And the way that she articulated it, that's exactly what we want to have. So that's where the two different, because you don't really see two different font types within a logo. And I, of course, I have a rather strong affinity for this. But this is one mark that has three different things in it. And I think it flows nicely as one piece. And when Rebecca was talking about the lockups, that's what this is. This thing's called a lockup. So we have these school lockups, and then we have another lockup that's more horizontal that has departments on it.
So figuring out the logo, I'm not really sure like when that happened in the process, but like once it was established, how come you didn't like immediately start ordering like tons of like swag, you know, like to fill the bookstore for when students moved in or like parents' weekends?
Great question.
I'll give you a brief answer, which is going to turn into a long one. We didn't know if we were going to get approved. That was the big thing, right? So once we got approved, is when we said, okay, now let's move forward. Let's turn this up. We work with the bookstore. We don't, the bookstore doesn't, they're Barnes and Nobles. So we work with the bookstore. One of the things that we decided to do was if you go in there now, you probably see, like, you can see a lot of Lasell stuff, not Lasell College stuff, Lasell stuff. I asked them to stop ordering Lasell College stuff last year. And they have a process, you know, and they should be getting stuff in the next couple of weeks.
Cool, thank you.
Chris has been working very hard to try to move this along.
But in the meantime, there is Lasell University swag that can be bought through
So the pop-up store, the fashion, the Studio 1851, they're great. We actually worked with them, and they just did a pop-up store I think last week, and the sweatshirts were going crazy, and they came out really well. I think they're going to be up again, Friends and Family Weekend, in a couple weeks on that end.
What was the biggest challenge you faced transitioning from college to university?
I don't think there was a huge challenge because changing to university was actually a reflection of who we were. So we already met, right, the Carnegie classification, and U.S. News and World already classified as a university. And all of these classification groups that group colleges together and universities together, we already grouped in one. So it really was this stuff, the messaging, the language, the logo. That was the difficult part because, quite frankly, we're not growing. We're not going to have 3,500 undergraduate students. We're not going to have a big football stadium. Like that's never going to change, right? We're going to keep growing our graduate program, and our undergrad really can only grow to a certain part because we have space issues here. Not issues, but space, limited space here. We have 54 acres, which is a lot in Auburndale, but that can only accommodate so many people. So I don't think it was necessarily a challenge to become a university because we already were. This is more of a reflection of who we are right now. The challenge, as Chris and Rebecca and I talked about, was the messaging and the logo and that one. Does that make sense? I hope that answers your question, yeah.
Probably the amount of work.
Ian's answer was a perfect PR answer. Like he's really good at what he does. No challenges. We already were. That's the answer that we want everyone to say. But yeah, there were definitely challenges.
I would say the amount of work, right? It was a tremendous amount of work. But that's with any job, right? You want to be busy. You want to have too much stuff to do. So what we had to do was we had to figure that out. And I think so the three of us are here, but there are 7 people on our team. Right, 8 people, 7 people. There are a bunch of other people that we leaned on to do work. There are people that don't even report in our department that we leaned on for work. So the amount that had to get done in such a short amount of time. But I think that's what my challenge is.
And moving forward, we can't just change the date on things anymore. We have to fundamentally change nearly all creative that we put out. Or if we happen to see, we now have to be the brand ambassador and really police that. And I'm sure you still see college everywhere, so it's difficult. It's exciting though, it's rewarding because going from a sunburst to not, you're still college, right? You can still keep that sign up, but it's really difficult getting to the root of all of college, now transitioning to university.
I want to talk about the brick signs, right? Because that's what everybody. You're coming here, you're especially on the first day, right? You're coming here and you still see Lasell College brick signs. We have to work kind of like the bookstore. We have to work with the historic district on changing this. They have different requirements than we do, and we got this quasi-approval for one of the signs, so we went ahead, and then they came back and said, oh no, you can't do that. We have 5 brick signs, and they're very expensive. And being a financially stable institution, one of the reasons that we are a financially stable institution is because we just don't do that stuff, right? If we would have to replace 5 signs and then 5 signs again, that's not prudent. So what we did was we did one, and then we said, okay, went back to the historic district. This is what you guys approved, and they came back and said, you can't light it. The lights are too bright. You have to figure out something else to do. And we just
Did you have a pre-approved budget that you worked to, or did you lay out the bones of the campaign and said we need this much money?
So
Do it.
we did some work with that first group, the University Status Study Group. We put together a financial proposal. And then our CFO, who's no longer our CFO, one of the reasons why he was so good too was because he was able to forecast things. So what he did was he basically put together this 4-year plan to change things. And so there are things like soccer uniforms, right? But you don't need to replace all athletic uniforms at the same time. There are different seasons. So what you can do is you can spread that cost out, okay? And then you look at the athletic uniforms and you say, okay, what needs to change? What says Lasell College? Well, not too many things actually say Lasell College. I think there are a couple of sports that actually have a Lasell College shirt. Most of them just say Lasell. So there are things like that that we didn't necessarily have to do. When we're talking about signage, we just need to update the signs. We don't need to replace the signs. So that has a different cost that's associated with it as well. So he put together a 4-year plan. This can't take 4 years. We work with one company to do all of our outdoor signage, and they're coming to campus soon. So I'm hoping that we're going to start to see a lot of changes soon. Does that answer your question?
Close enough.
Kind of.
What was it like, besides the push and pull of agencies have their agenda, and of course you go in with history and needs and wants, what was the process like working with an agency?
I really enjoyed it. I don't know if you guys want to say anything, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed, you manage that process. You don't control it. It's not what this creative that we see, this is not what I originally wanted. This is truly, this was a management project and getting groups of decision makers and opinions in a room and then coming up with something like this. So when you're doing the creative, everyone has an idea when it comes to creative, but when it comes to what you like, what you don't like. The reason you do all of that work beforehand, the research, the qualitative analysis, the focus groups, is because that determines the creative. Like when we were talking about the different color logo, some people like the red, but when you take a step back and say, but that's not who we are. So that process, managing that process, working with an agency, you kind of you use their expertise and you push back on them, and then you say, okay, well, this is what we want. I'm not going to tell you to make it this blue, but we want more affinity with the institution. Come back with something that we can look at.
There has to be a trust when you work with an agency. So I've worked on the agency side, and then I've worked here on the client side. And I think it's really important that so many relationships with agencies are we're the client, we're going to tell you what to do, and then you go do it, right? And if you don't like it, that's the worst way to work with an agency. The best way to work with an agency is how we did it with Primacy and how we do it with all of our agencies. We get in a room together at the beginning, and we talk. They're an extension of our team. We invited, the group that worked on the agency to the Lasell You Belong, because they were so excited about it. Like they have to feel like they're part of your team, and if they don't, then you're just not going to be as productive. You have to have that trust where you're never going to be thinking. You have as the client, and you have all of the knowledge, and some clients don't want to disseminate that knowledge to the agency. But the more you can make them feel like they're part of your organization and part of your team, the better working relationship you're going to have. It's the only way to work, and so many relationships fail because both parties don't see it that way.
So I just have a question on like the story that you're going to tell like throughout the years, because eventually like Lasell University is just going to be like a university someone, like they're not going to know the whole story and like the changing of like from college to university. So like will you have to then will you tailor your message to then like kind of like, I don't know, I'm kind of talking in like the future that like why you're such a university, because I feel like your story is more like the change and stuff like that. And, like, I've been here when it was a college, so I understand, but eventually people are gonna be like, oh, it's just Lasell University. So,
Well,
if that makes sense, I don't know if I'm explaining it right.
no,
but
you are, and well, that goes down to the market segmentation. Do you want to talk about that? So what we decided to do when we were doing the creative, right? We said, okay, Ian was talking about the 15 different groups that we have. There's a very big population that hasn't even heard of Lasell College. So we don't necessarily want to inform them that Lasell College is now Lasell University. We want to inform them about Lasell University. So the people that have an affinity with Lasell College, that are starting to build the affinity with Lasell College, those are the people that we want to say, we're now Lasell University. I don't know how important it's going to be in a couple of years that people that kind of heard of Lasell University think, oh yeah, that's right, they used to be Lasell College. Well, before that, they used to be Lasell Junior College. before that, they were, Overdale seminaries. So the thing that we want to reinforce is Lasell University. When we start talking timeline and stories and history, Lasell College will absolutely be a part of it.
And if in 3 years, everyone thinks of us as Lasell University, that's a really good problem to have. And then we can tell different stories, right? Like, we have so many great stories to tell here. My kids ask me what I do for a living, and I say I help my friends tell stories. And it's amazing the amount of stories here. So, if in 3 years, everyone knows that we're Lasell University, well, you know what? We got 100 other stories that we can push out and tell. So that's a really good, I hope that happens.
I know that last year there were rumors before that we were becoming a university, before it was officially announced. Did you have any were you worried that we weren't going to be approved beforehand, or were you pretty much 100% sure that we were going to?
So when I would go around and talk to people, I would always say, depending on state approval. But we knew we met the requirements. So that's why we did all of the work and investment before the state said proceed. I would go and I would talk to departments, I would talk to students, and then inevitably someone would ask a question, and it was basically that question, what are you going to do if the state turns you down? And I would always say, I'm going to stare at a wall for 3 days, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
But you know what we're not going to do? Return all the clothes at Barnes & Noble. So we're hedging our bets, being financially responsible.
True. Does that answer? And there was another question. Do you have a question?
You guys talked about rebranding to Lasell University on social media as a part of the transition, but how are you going to, going forward, create new content to reflect the old and new message?
On social, you're talking?
Mm-hmm.
So the message that we push out on social is different for each channel. So there's not one specific message we're pushing out for all of social. So Twitter reaches a different audience than LinkedIn, which reaches a different audience. Facebook is more of parents and alumni and students too. Instagram is mostly students. Twitter, we deal with a lot of media that follows us from Twitter. And people just kind of want news from Twitter. So they're all different messaging. It's a great question, and I'll give you, so a couple of the, someone owned, Lasell University on Instagram. So years ago they bought it, so we couldn't get that one. So but back when we looked at all the ones that were available, Lasell Unit is what we use on Twitter because Lasell University just won't fit on Twitter. Lasell_U for Instagram, we chose that over Lasell University because Lasell University wasn't, available. But it's a great question. We're actually, I oversee our social media. Samantha Mockley, who's on our team, really runs with that. I think she does we've only been overseeing it for about 5 months now. So I think if you look at our social media now as what it was a year ago, we've really tried to deliver more content, more video, more pictures, images, and I think that'll continue to grow. Any suggestions you have, please let us know. But does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
That all the different channels have different voices, the same voice, but they have different audiences. So you're tailoring that message to the different audiences.
I was just going back, within the same area. You mentioned that you guys had the most traction on YouTube, and
It wasn't the most. To me it was the most interesting. Because we didn't get as many views as we did on. If you want to go to the we had social stats. Yeah. So there you go. So we had 5,800 views on Twitter, 87 on Facebook, 27. This is all in the first 24 hours. But YouTube was 1,700. So it was actually the lowest. But we didn't send it out. So these were all sent to people's feeds. We just put it on YouTube, and people organically just found it.
You could, if you clicked through on the message, you got to YouTube.
Yeah.
But that means 1,700 people are clicking through that email. Unlikely, maybe half.
my point in terms of my view is YouTube is one of the easiest, most shareable in terms of if you're using different, I know for international students, WhatsApp is one of the biggest things. And the easiest way for you to share content is through YouTube, and it's very easy. And I was always wondering that Lasell, on Instagram, it's very good compared to a lot of schools, but YouTube, the presence is very minimal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there is a lot of space on YouTube that you can create a lot, that you can say more because you're not limited with the minutes, like all the other social media. But I was wondering about the YouTube approach for the next, or the strategy for YouTube.
Yeah, because we wanted to not just say, now we're university, we wanted to explain ourselves and go through that manifesto. That's why this video is 2 minutes and change. So we chose to do a lengthier, more content-rich video. That being said, we also chose YouTube because YouTube is part of the Google family, so we get stronger SEO juice from that. So everyone wins, and it's ADA compliant. So there are a lot of reasons why you use YouTube. Also the international audiences, which is another strategic reason why becoming a university is going to be more appealing.
But you're right, one of our goals for this year is to beef up our YouTube presence 100%. We need more content on there, and that's something I think you'll see. Any suggestions, let me know. It's a great point though.
I think that's a great message to the whole room of future marketers, that I'm sure there are plenty of people that have some good ideas of if they got to spend paid, earned, owned, whatever, they could come up with some great ideas.
Chris, do you have an idea of the percentage of people who received the email who actually clicked on the video in the email and then were then taken to the YouTube site?
So, no, we don't. We have a email service provider in which we use to send out a lot of marketing emails in which we know open rates and what links they click on and how long they spend. What we decided to do on this one was not use that.
Why?
Because it tends to slow things down. When we want to get one message out at the same time, it tends to slow things down. So we decided to do with this, just sent it out from Outlook.
We would if we would send the amount of email addresses that would have been in this program, it could have taken hours for different people, and different people would get it at different times, and that's happened in the past, right? People have waited 3, 4, 5 hours to get an email when they're all sent at the same time. So what we actually did was we had different people send out the email. So Henry's, for instance, sent to a certain group. We sent to a certain group. The dean sent to a certain group. So it was so that everyone would get that email at the same time. Alumni sent to their group. So it wasn't just, if we had used that, it could have been, how many hours could it have taken?
And the idea behind that too was it would be more authentic if it came from a person. So if it came from, and when we sent it to the deans, part of those 15 audiences too was partnerships, organizations. They should absolutely be aware of Lasell University. So crafted emails and asked deans to send them out.
And is there, I guess, a follow-up question, is there a reason that the video is no longer out there? The video no longer exists on YouTube. Is there a reason for that?
Oh, we just changed it. So the one that we did, we had to edit slightly. So it's still up there. It's just slightly different.
Because like a week ago, I clicked on the email that was sent out when it happened, and that link doesn't work.
Yep.
And so
when you re-upload a video, it's actually a whole new URL. So you can't see that original one because we changed it since then.
Why did you change it?
I think there was someone in there that shouldn't have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's still, that video is still up on all of our social, so we didn't take those down.
It's still on our channel.
It's still ours. It's pinned to all of our social feeds.
That was the main venue for people to consume the video, was through the social feeds.
I was looking at the brochure. One thing I noticed, going back to the question of athletics, is no mention of the word lasers, no image of Boomer. And wondering if Boomer is at risk of being retired in favor of something people might actually understand what it is.
So there were a couple of things that we were determined had to stay the same. Torch, Boomer. Those were two things that we were not going to touch. Those are things that people have a strong affinity with. This is just one piece. There are dozens of pieces like this. As a matter of fact, there's an athletic piece that we're working on right now. This is something that goes to undergraduate admission counselors. That's a road piece. No, Boomer's still here. He's on the new bus. Mascot's still going to be walking around. There were some athletic marks that we had to update, like the LC. We obviously had to update that. some of the athletic specific sports we had to update as well. No, but boom, floor.
Completely separate question for you. The strategy of pursuing an exclusive with the Globe is something I've often talked about in my class. We haven't covered that this semester. That there can be a benefit to that, in terms of the exposure you'll get through that outlet.
Yep.
But how does it impact your relationships with reporters for other outlets if you give the exclusive to their competitor?
Yeah, that is definitely something that you risk, you weigh the positives and the negatives. I don't think the Globe would have written a story on it if we would have just sent them a press release that morning and said, we're a university. I just don't think they would have. It was a big story to us, but the Globe needed more. They wouldn't have just written a byline which is actually what, can you go back one? So BBJ, which I love the Boston Business Journal, we have a great relationship with them. They wrote the story that day, basically just what we had in our press release, they put it in there. And they can do that. The Patrick one that I felt strongly about, so it's a tough dynamic. People get, usually, the Boston Business Journal and the Boston Globe are big competitors, right? So if you give something to the Globe, the BBJ is usually not happy about it. What worked out is that a couple months before, we had given something to the BBJ that we had to give to the Globe. So it's a give and take, but yeah, it's a risk that you take. What I think is that a lot of these places may not have even known that the Globe story was up, that they had that much of a head start. And partly is because we send out the press release to everyone else half an hour, 20 minutes after the Globe story went live. So it may not have even crossed their mind, but yeah, you definitely weigh that. I'm a fan of securing at least one. So when you have a big announcement, like if it's just a press release for not a major announcement, you send it out, you follow, and you hope that you get use your relationships, and you hope that you get some press. For a big announcement, if we had struck out and not got anything, that would have really been disappointing. So the fact that we were going to get at least one, and the big dog was the Globe, that was it. And just so you know, if we didn't get the Globe, we were going to the BBJ. If we didn't get the BBJ, we were going to the Boston Herald. We were going to go until we got something, definitely. So it's a great question.
You obviously picked the right person to go to, and my sources in the Globe said the thing that they welcomed is that they made a big deal about the Mount Ida problems and small colleges in general, and this was a quasi-counterpoint to what had been dominating about small colleges, and they love to always balance things off. And so there were other people in the Globe that saw more to this story than our focus was. And so I thought the campaign was masterfully handled.
Thank you.
And you chose the right person.
Thank you. I think there was, thank you. I appreciate it.
So 10 years ago when they sent you to fetch domains, is this where you thought you'd end up? Is this launch everything you could have imagined or more? Sorry, journalist in the room.
No, it is. It was so exciting launch day. It really was, because it was just endless nights, the amount of work, the amount of research that went into it. And this, as Ian was saying, Rebecca, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The agency felt the same exact way. It felt the same. This wasn't a rebrand. This was a new institution, and it was an established institution that's been around since 1851. This was an unbelievable opportunity. But at the same point, we are the ones that are responsible for changing something that people have a strong affinity with. They spend a lot of money on, they give a lot of money to. So we knew that there was going to be, not everyone's going to be happy. Not everyone's going to be happy. So we tried working with the alumni. We did as much outreach, specific one-to-one outreach as we could have. And so, we read the positives, we read the negatives. You always pay more attention to the negatives than you do the positives. And I'm still not used to seeing Lasell University, right? I'm 12 years here. I really like the marks that we have. I think they encapsulate the institution really well. I've also taught here as well, so I have a very strong affinity with the institution, relationship with the institution. So I was, I don't want to say hyper-focused, but I was definitely streamlined on, okay, this has to represent who we are. And we wanted to do things where, okay, well, how can this be used on social, right? Because that's another avenue that we have to figure out. We knew the mark that we used to have, Lasell College, did not work on social. It was really hard on digital. So we wanted to create something like you saw even in the print piece, it's not even social, but you see something like that and you see a student that is now going through the mark. Like on these sheets, it was on the, that's right, it was on the travel.
Has everyone
Yeah.
seen these? They're being passed around, yeah. But yeah.
And that represents who we are. So when we started to play around with opportunities like that, it's like, okay, this has legs.
Did you get any reactions or responses from any of the surrounding universities or colleges on Lasell's transition to a university?
I heard from some people that day that there was like, hey, congratulations. You know, a couple of my counterparts, the director of communications at a couple different schools, reached out to me that I've known for a while and just said, hey, congratulations, great job, great press. I think a lot of them kind of knew. You know, this wasn't a secret. You know, Michael has been open with it, not to other institutions, but to internal constituents, and that just leaks out. So I think people maybe had an inkling.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Well, I think Ian summed it up perfectly a couple minutes ago. He said it's the worst kept secret.
Yeah.
And other institutions, peer institutions, when you do something like this, you usually get some nice remarks. So and they
even if they don't mean it.
It's not to acknowledge.
One other question. There's a very small target audience that we've had tensions with, and that's our neighbors.
That's a great question.
How did you outreach to them and when?
So they were part of the audience segmentation. We sent some announcements to them beforehand, just to invite them to come to campus. And I don't believe they did.
No,
They didn't take us up on it.
Yeah, we reached out to the neighbors. Well, so in our strategic planning meetings, which the university does every year, there is a neighbor that joins, and that neighbor then can facilitate information. So this was talked about in April when we talked at our strategic planning meeting. So the neighbors were aware, and actually Michael sent an email to all of the neighbors. I think it was in June when we reached out. We were having this happen in August. We knew our date, so he reached out to the neighbors in June with an email, and he made sure he said, any questions, here is my email address, call me. And I don't think anyone called.
And you know what? That reminded me, when we were going to the Auburndale Historic District for the signs.
Yeah.
There were 3 neighbors that sit on the Historic District Commission.
Yeah.
So, and we didn't want that to be their first time that they've heard about it. So what we did was we took that as an opportunity, and that was the day of that meeting was the first time that we sent an email in the morning, because we wanted, and that actually, you were there.
Yeah, I was there.
The email came up. Right?
Yeah, the email came up, and he said, hey, I got your email, congratulations. And then there were actually a couple of neighbors, because that historic meeting is open to the public. So there were a couple of neighbors that came because they wanted to see what the signs were going to look like. And they had a couple of questions. Are they going to be bigger? Are they going to be lit? And we answered all their questions, and they were fine with it. Another person we did give a heads up to ahead of time that we thought was important with a phone call was Mayor Fuller, from the Mayor of Newton. She's been a big partner with everything we've done here, a supporter of Lasell. So we reached out to her the week before the 4th of July and set up a call, and Michael informed her what we were doing over a phone call, which I think was really important because she's a big supporter of ours and an important member of.
Good for you. These small things are big things.
Yeah.
That you were receptive of those. That's really good.
We had quite a checklist.
Yeah, we did.
We had quite a checklist.
So obviously you guys were talking about how it was just sort of a natural progression towards university. When you were starting to, more seriously consider it and doing the study groups, was there any form of pushback, whether it's from students, faculty, neighbors, anything like
Sure.
that?
I can talk about the pushback from students. The pushback from students was, we don't have a football team. I can't go to the gym without something not breaking. Pushback from faculty, I only have one license, one software license for this. How come we don't have an institutional-wide license? A university would have that. So I remember what we did was we regrouped and we said we have to change this conversation. It's not about size. It's not about big. We're not going to be big. What we are going to be is we're going to be a university that teaches students. We're not a research institution. Same thing when I was talking to the faculty. We're not going to become a tier 1 research institution. That would fundamentally change who we are. We are a student-first teaching institution. That's who we are. And so when we were coming up with our messaging, when you stay true to your core, and the messaging comes out the way that it did, it makes it really easy. So, but at the same point, I still hear from students, about, oh, I'm going to have a lecture hall that's 200 people. As you can see from this room, we don't have a room that fits 200 people, right? And it's still kind of, which I understand. Just because we had launch day, we know full well this is a marathon. We're going to be reinforcing this every day for a really long time. So if we ever get to the place of Lasell College, Lasell University, I think that's a fantastic place. I think it's a fantastic place if people go, oh yeah, Lasell University. Yeah, I know that. Not, oh yeah, didn't that used to be Lasell College? Another question.
I'd be interested in the pool of prospective students, in addition to what you just said about current students. On the undergraduate level and the graduate level, have there been any sort of comments coming back to the admissions team about prospective students?
So one of the reasons why there was such a short timeline from when for when we had to do this was because we had to hit it around the undergraduate and graduate admission cycles. So the undergraduate admission folks needed to hit the road with stuff.
Right.
The stuff that Rebecca just handed out, that's the first thing that we've done. So they've now hit the road and they have university status stuff. The feedback that we've been receiving from counselors is that students love it. Prospective students, they love it. They're grabbing stuff at tables, they're asking questions about Lasell University. You want to talk about the organic traffic to the site?
With OTT?
No, just in general. Well, OTT too.
Yeah, so Chris had the foresight to do a market analysis of who we were, and now we get to see who we are in another 6 months. So there's been a lot of just organic brand traffic. We've been buying that brand, and now you can flip it to university. So to continue that traffic and hit those remarketing ads and make sure that for 180 days, we're in everyone's eyes as university. So it flipped automatically. They don't necessarily see it. They're definitely still searching for Lasell. Whether you're putting university or college, we're still bidding on college, so people are still coming to our site. But also we were able to do a find and replace with college to university. So all of our ads, and then over the next 3 to 6 months, all of our organic meta keywords that'll naturally switch over to university.
A good indicator is the last few months we've experienced the most organic traffic to the college website. Organic traffic is people that go in to Google and type Lasell University. So that's a good sign for us. It's not a, we don't do predictive modeling. It's nothing like that. But it's a good indication. Because people are searching for us, and we see the line, instead of being level, it's going up, and that's exactly what we want.
For me, for graduate degree programs, when I look at that, I was wondering about the messaging. For example, like I see how it sells. For example, when you say it's 100 online or hybrid format is 12 to 24 months, I can see that how this would sell for someone who's working full time and all of that. But at the same time, there's another thing in my background going in is how there is nothing that touches on the quality. And this, for example, for me as a graduate student, that is. A lot of times I see, in general, a lot of people who are trying to sell the online because it's the new method of programming.
Profitable.
I see the issue with when you think about the quality of stuff. It's how can you have a consistent message when saying that, yes, you will have that degree, because this is a selling point and I would sell for me, but I'm the same person that is going towards that, is concerned about the quality itself, and it's a tough message to deal in. How are you guys dealing with that?
So particularly with graduate degrees, the ad is the top level value points that we know people have the greatest affinity for, they're looking for, and they'll convert. And then in the user funnel, then we'll start to hit you with our quality of program. When you get further down in the funnel, then we'll ask you to apply. So for a digital marketing ad, we're hitting the top level points that we know will help convert. But you're absolutely right, we do get to that point just further down the line.
We only have a few seconds.
Yeah. No, I understand. From a marketing point of view, I understand 100% why this is the most important message to go out. But my question was, as I'm thinking, I'm making that 1 second decision, I'm thinking about the quality as well of it.
Oh, like Rebecca was saying, it's the user funnel, so there's, depending on where you are, there's different messages.
Does everyone know what that means, the user funnel? Does anyone not know what that means? Everyone knows. All right, cool. Yeah, I know.
How about if I just do this really quick? So you have a funnel? And this is the way any marketing communications team works. You get your prospects, customers. So all the way up here, your big group, right? It's people that haven't necessarily bought a product yet or haven't inquired, however it is that you measure people down here. So you get your big group up here, then you have different stages of messaging that go down. So there could be, and I won't get into how complicated Rebecca's is, but there's different stages of messaging that goes on because you lose people as you get further down. And so the people that end up down here, that's how you measure conversions. That's how you start to talk about ROI. So the big stuff up here is your cost, and then the stuff down here is how you start to measure, okay, this is how much it's worth. In a nutshell.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, actually, I hear a lot of talk about affinity for certain things here. I have an affinity for veterans here on campus. I'm the president of Veterans at Lasell, Darren Guild. And now that the little dog is going to bark like a big dog at the university level, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we're at 1.5%, the national average. And for veteran enrollment, the national average is at 4%. You're leaving tens of millions of dollars on the table here. What are you doing? What are you planning on doing to approach the veteran community? It's a no-brainer, slam dunk financially. I did a capstone on it, 81 pages of research and whatnot. I'd be more than happy to share. Eric's familiar with it.
I'd love to see it. Yeah, I'd love to see it. So
what are you doing moving forward to possibly go after these veterans that have an opportunity to be involved in a program that does very well for them?
Mm-hmm. So veterans is another one of our market segmentations, right? It also costs a lot of money for veterans to become aware of it, and it's an extremely competitive market too. So we have a couple of intro campaigns that we have down, but we have.
But the thing that you don't know about it as well probably is it's not as competitive as you think, because based off of where our zip code is located, what our BAH payouts are, there really is very limited competition. We're one of the highest paying schools in the entire nation.
I'd love to read it. I'd love to talk more.
I have some information I can give you today.
I'd love to talk more, yeah.
He's made us aware of it. We have some thoughts about how we can do that.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Any other questions?
Oh, I have one more.
Great job. A lot of investment, people in mind. What is the single most important competitive advantage we've gained from becoming a university?
From where I sit, it gives us another opportunity. It gives us another opportunity to jump up and down and talk about who we are. Competitive advantage is that we get to make people aware of who we are that should have known who we are, right? So we're talking about veterans as well. So in terms of competitive advantage, it's another opportunity. And we've taken that opportunity and we jump up and down about it. resources are limited. So we have to be, when we're talking funnels, we have to be extremely conscious of where we are. So when we talk about new markets, we have to figure out, okay, how much is it going to cost? And where are we going to go? The competitive advantage, though, is truly the opportunity to get in front of new people.
I think in different parts of the country, in different parts of the world,
Yeah.
university does mean more. I don't necessarily think it does here, maybe in New England, but I do think in other parts of the country, and especially overseas, university is a higher prestige.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when university happens, it definitely, if we're from an international student point of view, makes the biggest difference. Because getting an international, how can I say, degree most of the time, you know, a lot of the companies in the international field, they care where the degree came from. And if you have it in like college or university, it does make a huge difference. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's an influx of more international students coming to the school just because of university.
And part of our research indicated too that international students were leaving Lasell College, going to a less peer institution that was a university, because they wanted to graduate from university.
From university, yeah.
That's not the reason we did it, but you asked what the single biggest, thing right away, I think.
I guess I have two questions, and I'm going to preface the second one with the first one. Oh, it just slipped my mind. I'll get back to you in a second.
Oh, both of them slipped your mind?
Yes.
I have a question. So, regarding to international student, as my friend mentioned, I'm actually objecting to his opinion. I have a different opinion because I'm an international student, and the reason that I joined Lasell is because of the size of the classes. Because I want to learn, I want to be more like involved in the class. You know, I want to make sure that I'm being heard. You know, in a class with like 10 people, the chances are that I'm going to learn more. Yes, I understand that, you know, being a university might be like a little bit more prestigious in other countries, but from my personal point of view, you learn more in like in an environment where there's not a lot of people. Because I have a sister who went to a university, and we talk about it a lot. And she has been in the classes where, you know, there are 100 of people. So in that case, you might be losing a lot of people who wants to actually learn, rather than going for the idea of, okay, I just want to have a paper that says university and it looks cool.
So, I absolutely, were you done?
No, yeah, I'm done. I just wanted to kind of...
I absolutely agree with you. And that's why we're going to stay core to who we are. We're not going to have one class of 100 students. We're going to have 5 classes of 20.
Okay. But my other question would be that looking at Lasell University, it's just like kind of... If I see that without knowing Lasell, that it used to be a college, I think that it's big. There's a lot of students and all that, so it will attract more students. So then the idea of, you know, being that kind of having all the tradition and whatever Lasell stands for, all the values, going forward, more people will be coming, you will get more students, so that is gonna kind of like take away from that values that you guys have been representing for years.
Mm-hmm. So, and I love it. I love your question. So if you think about your funnel, right? We're talking awareness, and what we are is, we don't want people here that want to attend a class with 100 people. That's not what you're going to get here. So when you're going through the funnel, the messaging that we have, we talk about faculty-student ratio. We talk about undergraduate faculty-student ratio, graduate faculty-student ratio. Hopefully that messaging, once you become interested in Lasell, that messaging will say, yeah, okay, I will get that intimate relationship with a faculty member at Lasell University, because classes are capped at 12, classes are capped at 17. You know, I'm not going to have more than 22 people in my class. But that's part of the messaging that we have, that we're going to have in the funnel.
Yeah, but that's not say in the front page. So what I'm saying that, you know, based off all the information that you get off the logo, that's what I would think, just not knowing Lasell.
No, I absolutely, and I appreciate it. Those are things that we can talk about when we do messaging too.
Just to add to I went to Suffolk University. I like to see the comparison, and you know, from a point of view that there's a lot of things that I was surprised to see Suffolk better than Lasell in the perception when I know it's a fact that it's not. And I am proud of being a Suffolk alumni as well. So, but the thing is, I think the messaging, as you said, is very important. But for the fact that it's a university, when I went to Suffolk was a university that I went to, and it was very similar, very small classes. And when you do talk, when it's word of mouth is a very important thing. And how can I say, it is marketable for me. I'm assuming for the majority of schools, when you're getting to you're getting an education, also you're trying to market yourself in the marketplace. And when you're at university, there is no doubt that university has how can I say, a better sound to it when you're marketing yourself. In terms of, I don't think that would, if we talk, for example, of how many students would be afraid of going, because I think the word of mouth goes into it, that yes, it is a university, so it ticks that box. And if you are looking for the intimate thing, I think also having that idea after it is a big thing. But I think it's a bigger of a turn off when you see college than you see university, than the other way around, because usually when we go into the funnel, you choose that yes, it is university, takes the big thing, yeah, it works out. Then I go in and I see that the classes are small and this is what I want, then I'm already won. But if the classes are small and I do get the education, all of that, but the first thing that I'm going to see is not the name that I want, then I'm definitely turned off by it. I'm not even going to go through the tunnel. And that is, I think, one of the biggest things.
No, I was just gonna agree with that.
Did you have a question?
Oh, okay, so I remembered what the whole bit did. So, you guys had the 4-year plan, the Vision 2022. Now, is that a guided list of things that you want to achieve, or is it just a list of things that you're trying to achieve by then? Like, do you have a certain list of steps that you're going to take towards reaching every single goal, or do you kind of just go about based on what the climate is on campus, or what students need most, or et cetera, et cetera?
You're referring to the strategic plan?
Yes.
Yep. So think of the strategic plan, it's an institutional-wide memorandum, essentially, right? And the way that that's broken down in terms of structure is people are assigned with certain things. So when you're assigned with certain things, it's kind of your task to figure out how to get that done, right? Everything we do, everything we do has to be done in conjunction with the strategic plan. Because the strategic plan calls for 2,000 students, and we have a goal where, you know what, we work better with 700 students, we're doing something wrong. Because that's not what the strategic plan is for. So our efforts have to be aligned with that strategic plan. And each of the items that's in the strategic plan is really broken down into a department or person or responsibility. And then the way that President Alexander handles that is you're actually assigned something at the strategic planning weekend that Ian was talking about. And then you become responsible for that. And it usually aligns with what it is that you're doing.
There are long-term goals or 4-year goals, and then there are short-term goals. So we have a set of strategic 4-year goals, and Eric can weigh in on this too, he's on the senior management team, but the short-term goals, we try to accomplish those within the year, and then those will lead to the strategic goals of 2020. Did we cover that right now?
You said it right.
Awesome, thank you.
So is this a short-term goal?
The university? It's a super long-term goal.
I think we have time for one more question. Is there one more question?
Well, that was the first part of my
So you want to ask the second part of the
yes,
question?
so from a PR standpoint, how are you going to use the 4-year plan and relate it back to Lasell's transition into university? And how are you going to use that 4-year plan to sort of spread that messaging that you originally had while transitioning?
So the way I look at PR and it's very short term, right? So I'm not going to be pitching something to an outlet that we're looking forward to happening in 4 years. The news is new, right? New is the first word in news, and that is the thing that you have to deal with on a daily basis. These reporters, these producers, they're turning around things in hours, whereas opposed to 20 years ago, they could spend a week working on a story that wasn't going to run for a couple months. That's not the case. You have to hit them with something that's timely and what is on their mind right now. and you go to them with what is topical, what is newsworthy. And I'll be quick, but I know you guys have heard this last year when I talked about it. But you know, we had an opportunity to get on WVZ radio in the morning about a year and a half ago, based on the story that was in the New York Times. We had a program similar to it. Claudia Rinaldi jumped out of jury duty to do the interview. She was on. Next thing you know, VZ is calling us every month for the next 12 months because we have a timely thing. Do you have someone at Lasell who can do that? And we always do because we have such an awesome faculty and staff, and we're able to provide them what they need. So does that kind of answer your question? Like if we had a big event coming up in 2 or 3 years, part of the strategic plan, we wouldn't necessarily pitch it now. I would pitch it as it gets closer.
Okay,
Could I
Of
add
course.
to that? The other thing, if you look at the strategic plan, you'll see that most of the elements are about strengthening the kinds of things that Chris talked about that make us who we are. Strengthening, teaching, the things in there, Grow Grad program, grad enrollment to 700, add additional programs and the like. Those are all things that either are strengthening the things that we're already strong in or are expanding what we do and are in line with what a university does. So just check out each of those elements and you'll see that that's the idea behind it.
So thank you.
And that's from a strategic leadership perspective. University status isn't even in the strategic plan. But what we've done supports what Eric is doing. So therefore, in order for Eric to reach his goals, we had to reach ours.
Great. We're going to say thank you.